Welcome to the Exponential Era Webcast. It is my great honor to introduce you to Derek Notman. Derek is a certified financial planner, and he is also the founder of Conneqtor, a virtual advisor system that helps financial advisors tap into the power of the digital world. Derek, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be with you. Looking forward to our chat today.
Okay, so I would like to kick off by asking you what inspired you to found Conneqtor? Tell us a little bit more about what Conneqtor does and what got you started in this particular venture.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I actually kind of wear two hats right now. I am practicing CFP, but I also founded this other company, Conneqtor. So I took my personal practice virtual back in 2013, and I did it for me and my family initially. I had a newborn at home and wanted to be able to have a better life-work balance where I could really enjoy pursuing my passions, being with my wife and my son and my dog and traveling and doing all these things and not be a slave to my business. So I started the journey for me, and it took me a while to figure it out because there was no roadmap. And initially, a lot of advisors are like, oh, that'll never work. You can't build a business that way. What are you talking about? You know, like, we have to cold call. We have to do our cheesy seminars and all this stuff. And, you know, like, okay, well, I'm not listening to you. I'm going to go do what I want to do. And, you know, there's risks with that, but I did it and ended up having a ton of success having a virtual practice. And I've been virtual ever since. So advisors started coming back to me and they're like, well, how are you getting clients online? How are you able to work from anywhere? You know, I started getting all these questions like, well, what is social media? How do I do a website? All these things. So the entrepreneurial side of me is like, okay, now I've got something. I have proof of concept already. I need to go build this for all the other advisors out there so they can do at some level what I have done. So Conneqtor is a system that teaches advisors everything they need. And you can almost think of it as like a virtual business in a box, where it teaches them everything they need to do to build a virtual or semi-virtual practice.
You know, one of the things that we, are really focused on is the convergence of technologies. And so it'd be really interesting to know from your perspective, what sort of came together, what allowed you to create this, this platform, because it potentially can really disrupt things. And I really like the idea of it's in a box. You just open it up and away you go. I'm sure it's not quite that simple, but what technologies sort of came together that really allowed you to, we call it creating new ecosystems, but because that's virtually what you're doing, no pun intended, but what sort of brought you to that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So I think a number of things happened. One being the consumer is now comfortable with doing things like this. So for a very long time, we did everything belly to belly. We wanted to go buy groceries, we had to drive to the grocery store. We wanted to date somebody new, we had to go to the bar. Whatever. And what has happened over the last, really, 20 years, but probably more the last 10 especially, is that video conferencing, social media, websites, all of this digital and tech stuff has advanced so much and so quickly that it has enabled advisors, not just in my industry, but pretty much every industry, to take advantage of these tools and retool, in a way, their business. So there's a lot of different things. The list of tech is endless. Video conferencing for sure is a big one. But even my computer is so small, I can disconnect my computer and go work anywhere in the world just like that. I'm actually in Southern California right now, working remotely. And it's business as usual for me. It didn't make any difference. I could just...
Yeah, I kind of thought you had a fake background there. You're
yeah,
really sitting out at the beach. You just don't want your clients to know.
I'd like to show you what's over there because the ocean is right there, but there'd be too much backlight. You wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah. But
it's a beautiful model, isn't it? Being able to work just anytime, anywhere. You choose how you do it. I mean, if you can pull it off, It's great. Now, in your industry, financial services, this is a fairly conservative industry, right? I think it's the type of industry that's slow to adapt to some of these changes. Now, we just hit COVID-19, and COVID-19 has been an accelerant to the adoption of digital systems, and in particular, work remotely and engage clients remotely. So tell us about how COVID-19 has impacted your business and where you think we're going to go from here.
Great question. So COVID did not affect my business at all. My wealth management side thing. It was business as usual for me. I had all the infrastructure and everything set up, so I didn't skip a beat. If anything, I'm working more now than I was before. And then for Conneqtor, it was like a perfect storm. Because Conneqtor went live late last year, before there was any talk of COVID. And I've been talking about how advisors needed to evolve for some time because our industry is super outdated. We are still teaching new advisors today to do things we did in 1985. So the consumer has evolved, tech has evolved, but the industry's tactics and strategies have not. And they can get away with it because they've got really great margins, right? And it's just, it's a slow industry to evolve. So COVID has been, it's been really hurtful to a lot of the world. Let's face it, it's caused a lot of problems. But there's been a silver lining for a number of companies, including Conneqtor, showing this proof of concept, like beyond a reasonable doubt. We know this remote working or virtual working is possible and we can thrive. There was a really cool report that came out a couple days ago. I saw from another colleague of mine who's very much in the virtual space. Forbes interviewed the top 500 companies, like what do they call it, Fortune 500, and about all these different things going on with the economy and business and COVID. And about 50% of them said they don't expect any of their employees to go back into the office until June of next year. Almost, I think like 27% said they expect their field force to never come back. Right? So really, really interesting what's going on. This is not just in the financial space, this is across the board. So will we lose the belly-to-belly meeting? No. Right? I think as human beings, we are wired to connect. We want social interaction. That's never going to change. But when it comes to business, even in financial services, it has shown beyond a reasonable doubt that we can thrive, that we can conduct business the way that we need to. It can still be personal and customized, and it's a lot more efficient too. Everyone, it's like a win-win for everybody. So
how do you handle the trust requirements? And I don't mean the living will type trust, but just the interaction, because trust is the currency that humans use to interact. Without it, there's no interaction. I don't trust you, nothing happens.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So in your business, that's a big element. How do you do that in your Connect business? What are some of the built-in safeguards? Because I'm going to give you my money, I'm going to give you the future of my children, etc. There's a trust element there. There's also signing documents. There's other things that you may want to pass along in a sort of a separate corridor beyond the money and the checks.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing that is actually people are more comfortable with it than you would maybe guess. So I call this, I have this thing, I don't know if I coined it, but I call it the trust and transparency exchange model. And it goes to your point exactly in that people will not buy unless they trust the source that they're buying from and that source is transparent. So I really focus on, if you're going to be doing things virtually like this, the advisor needs to be very transparent. Who are they? What did they do? How much do they charge? Most advisors don't list their prices, which is crazy. You don't go to Best Buy to buy a TV without having the prices there, right? You need the price.
Or at least a starting point for negotiation.
Yeah, exactly, right? You have to have that. So teach them all about that, but then also you have to be able to be engaged online. So one of the tricks to marketing is go where people are and then be present there. So go on social media, have a website, be present, but don't just be present in like, hey, I have a profile. Engage with people, comment on other people's posts, post videos about yourself, share personal stories. Don't talk about product and service. No one wants to hear that junk anyways. Just be human and let people start to get to know you before they actually ever talk to you. And I've had plenty of meetings even this week. They're like, Derek, I feel like I already know you. So if you're setting up this environment correctly, you are empowering the consumer to get to know you from a multiple angle perspective. And then when they are ready, they will come to you to work with you. So that's more the conceptual piece. And then as far as signing documents, you need to have robust technology for electronic signature, for conducting meetings, for sharing documents. You have to be able to say like, hey, like we're going to do this virtually. I know you bought in at a conceptual level and you feel like you trust me, but don't worry, we've got all this other tech to support us to make sure that we are doing something the way we're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
So,
what's
the vulnerability that you pointed out there, the ability to be vulnerable online.
You have to be vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, and that helps with the transparency as well, right? People are able to see that you are sincere, right? That you are being vulnerable in front of others, that you're being totally transparent. And I think that helps build trust, to Michael's point, which is really, really important.
It definitely does. It's funny because it's no different. If you were at a cocktail party or a friend's barbecue, you wouldn't be standing off by the fake plant in the corner, looking at everybody. You would be engaged. You'd be having conversations. You'd be asking questions and follow-up questions. The same holds true when we're online. It's just a different medium. That's all.
Yeah.
So instead of the kitchen table or the bar, or the barbecue, now we have a computer between us. That's the only thing that's different.
Yeah.
Or should be different.
What I really find fascinating is the fact that we've had this technology, video conferencing specifically, for a long time, right? And the resistance has been just incredible, right? In education, in financial services. But now that we've been forced to use the technology, right? People don't have a choice. You have to meet remotely. Now people are going, wow, I could have done this a long time ago. Why did I wait so long? And I think this applies to so many aspects of, change management, innovation, just the adoption of new things. We have a natural tendency to be afraid of new things, right? And the resistance is incredible. The status quo is like this gravity thing that, pulls you down and doesn't let go. But I'm wondering, are you seeing a change in people's attitude? Do you think people are going, okay, I get this now. I'm ready to engage digitally. And are your clients more comfortable with this new environment?
Yeah, I would say, at least from my own perspective, my own clients have been comfortable with this for a while. And a big part of that is, how do you educate and message the change with them so they feel good about it? But at large, the pandemic has proved it. We had to do it. Business has been able to continue on. We're able to still see our families. Granted, it's not ideal on a personal side, but from business, it's worked really, really well. So a big part is communicating it to them, but some people just had to get forced into evolution, right? I mean, evolution is tough, and there are growing pains that come with that. And the humans, maybe lazy is not the right word, but humans don't like to change unless they are forced to. And that's okay. I get it. We get comfortable and we do things a certain way and they work. Maybe we know there's a better way, but we don't really want to go through the effort and the growing pains of making those changes. So when something is forced upon us, we're like, okay, well, I don't have a choice. Let's do this. And you never come back from that completely because that's evolution, right? There's not any de-evolution going on here. It's evolution. And it's not like night and day, but it's definitely progressive. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way we were before.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And it would be interesting to think about, how you see your relationship with your clientele going forward. One of the things that I'm seeing, and I know in my own life, the choice of doing an in-person versus an online, boy, it changes the availability of my time. I've got to be really motivated, and I think this is going to be a carryover, to show up for a meeting with other people in a room or wherever. I don't care what it is. It's a time you begin to understand, wait a minute, I got all my travel time, the parking, the, where's the car, go up and down the elevator, find the place. I mean, especially in a place like Minneapolis where we put a maze on top of the maze.
Plus the cold weather, right? Who wants to leave home in the winter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're really gonna have to get me. It's gonna have to be a very important meeting. Right? So I see a behavioral change there that, is probably for the good. I feel more productive in some cases, other cases not. There's actually too many interactions sometimes, or too much to do to keep content going and keep that presence rolling. But do you see that? I mean, your clients are going to want to meet with you at some point, but is it going to be, maybe you concentrate it? I don't know. How are you going to deal with that going forward? Because I do see that change. I don't want to waste my time with, having to travel to a meeting unless it's really important, or I really like the people and I can't wait to see them.
Yeah. I mean, a 1 hour meeting easily can turn into 3 or 4 hours, right? Between travel and, small talk and all that. So I think it's a total benefit to the advisor and the client to be able to do things like this. And, I'll give an example. I have a new primary physician. Maybe David has shared this with you, previously, but I have a new primary physician and we met like this. And he even said, he's like, moving forward, if you want, you can come in and see us, but you don't have to unless it's an emergency. We can continue doing things like this. And I know at the end of the day, what's truly important to me is my family, my dog, travel, my passions, running my businesses. And if I have to decide about hanging out with my son or driving an hour round trip to go to something I don't really want to do, I know where my time is going to go, right? So I think that's tapping into just the human emotion of wanting to do what you really want to do and not getting distracted by all these things. So from a client perspective, if I can sit in my office or my kitchen and meet with you and still be personal and have it customized and have a relationship and get everything done I need to get done, but then I can just turn the computer off and turn around and go hang out with my family, that's a win. That's a total win for me. Mm-hmm. Knowing I have the option to go see a client in person or my advisor in person if I want. I have new clients now coming to me. I'll even ask them, are you cool working virtually forever? They're like, yeah, that's fine. That's great. Let's do that. So I don't think it's a problem. And from the advisor standpoint, think about it. 1 hour a day, let's just say 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, you're driving to and from your office or client appointments. 50 weeks a year, you take 2 weeks off. That's 250 hours. That's 6 1/4 40-hour work weeks. Look at the time wasted driving, where you could be with your family or building your business or a combination of both. So I think people, again, because of the pandemic, are finally realizing, wow, I got my life back. I can do more now. I can do more. My business can be more profitable.
Generation Z, right? Is for a long time everybody was going, oh, they're spending, it's too much screen time, and and you find that, well, maybe not. Maybe actually it's pretty efficient and pretty effective in terms of coordinating activities. When they do get together, it's great. I mean, I know my kids miss that interaction, but on the other hand, they're finding different ways to do that, and there's all kinds of leverages, if you will, including things like TikTok and whatever else. But it's very interesting to see that maybe in some ways we're late to the party.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think we are a bit, and that's okay. But we've been forced into it. Now we're at the party, so we better enjoy it.
Yeah. So Derek, I see a couple of issues or obstacles to adoption. One is what I call the digital mess. What I mean by that is, you have so many different apps. You're communicating via text messaging, and then you need to send somebody a document. So you get Dropbox or Box, and then you need to do a video conference, and you go to Zoom, and you go someplace else. Pretty soon, your information is spread all over the place. You can't find anything anymore. People get confused, and it's just very difficult to manage, that digital mess. The other problem that I see is security, right? So we live in a world where you can't have enough, security from a cyber security standpoint. We've seen the problems that Zoom has experienced. Zoom is a great app. We're using it right now to do this. But there are some legitimate security issues, and some companies, Salesforce does not allow their employees to use Zoom anymore. And so what obstacles have you observed, that have you seen to the adoption of these technologies?
I think advisors by nature are slow to adopt a lot of the tech. There's a lot of hesitation. We are in a highly, highly regulated and highly sensitive information, environment. So I think there's been a challenge there. And then the other challenge is that there's no uniformity. As you said, there are so many options out there. And a lot of advisors are affiliated with larger institutions. I would say the bulk are. There is a growing independent out there, but they still affiliate a lot with them, like with a TD Ameritrade or something to clear, right? So they still have these things. And the issue is you've got so many disjointed tech offerings. It's tough to know which one can I pick, which one is compliance going to be okay with. How do I figure all this stuff out? So I think that's a challenge. So then what advisors end up doing is they do nothing, or they do the bare minimum because they just don't know where to go. And I feel that frustration because I am one of those advisors. I've got a lot of different tech, and some of that is dictated by what my back office says I can and cannot use. Yeah. And what would be nice is if all those back offices from all those companies across the country were like, hey, you know what? Why don't we uniform this? That would be awesome because now everyone's doing the same thing. We've got robust security. It's simple. It's easy. We're not there yet. I don't know if we'll ever get there. I wish we would, but that's been a challenge for sure.
It's interesting you go there because, coming out of, manufacturing and specifically in high technology, standardization is what cut costs.
Exactly.
The minute you standardize, everything moves at higher speeds. It's scalable and it's lower cost. And yeah, there's resistance there because one group it impacts differently than another. But if you can do that over an iterative, gradual process, everybody gets up onto the same page. And it's extremely difficult in yours, largely because of the large number of independents. So do you see some convergence happening there as well, where the independents get together more in an association, start to work through those standards and things themselves?
I totally could see that. I've had this thought for a while now that I think we're going to see a consolidation because there are so many offerings out there and the big players are going to start buying up the smaller ones. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good up to a certain extent. I love the startup space. I love the diversity that it brings and the ideas that it brings. But when we are talking about efficiencies, we do need some consolidation. We do need some uniformity among many. So yeah, we can still brand ourselves and do our own thing and have our own value add, but some of these systems just need to be that we all can tap into so they all work the same. When and how that'll work, I don't know, Michael. I hope it's sooner rather than later, but let's face it, especially my industry, we're slow. We don't want to evolve unless we're forced to, and it's massive, massive costs when we do. For these big financial companies. So there's a number of challenges there, but the first one is they got to get it up here first. I don't know if they've got it yet.
Well, I have the feeling that if you don't, the Zoomers will do it for you.
Yeah, right. I think so. It's coming at some point.
All right, Derek. So we have come to the end of our 20 minutes here. I'd like to ask you, what are your final thoughts that you'd leave for our audience regarding, being ahead of the curve? I think you've been a pioneer in many ways in the financial services industry. So in general, for companies that want to be more open-minded to change, that want to stay ahead of the curve, what advice would you have for them? And then let our audience know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I think it's terribly important that we need to be open to the evolution, as we talked about earlier. The companies, the individuals, let's stop resting on our laurels. Let's stop resting on the margins that we're used to, and let's start actually adapting. At the end of the day, the consumer is the person or people we need to listen to more than anything. The consumer is demanding a new experience. And they were before COVID hit. COVID just put a whole bunch of gas on the fire. Okay, so we need to listen to what the consumer is saying. And if we don't, those companies, those advisors will go extinct at some point. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, we call them flash boiled. We call them flash boiled frogs.
Exactly, that's it, right? That's exactly it. So it's happening, and the future is not tomorrow. It's not next year. We are in a mega trend happening right now, and we have to evolve and embrace that. Otherwise, we're done. So that would be where I would say, like, get that in your mind. Understand that things are different. They're not what they were 6 months or 10 years ago. It is different now. Time to embrace it. That's where I think we're at now. As far as contacting me, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect or shoot me a message on there. You can also check out the website about the system if you want. I'm sure you guys can link that in the show notes or whatever, but it's just virtualadvisorsystem.com. And yeah, I'm always open for a chat if people have questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Derek, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you both. I really appreciate the opportunity.